Story 1. Alyssa lies. A little girl comes home and tells her dad that her best friend is being abused. He thinks about what to do and takes the entire weekend to decide to inform the proper authorities on Monday. However, when they get to school on Monday, he receives the news. Alyssa will no longer be silent. Because Alyssa can no longer do anything. Because she was murdered. A close second is Concrete Angel, which carries a similar message. An abused little girl goes unnoticed and is eventually murdered. Story 2. I have a tie because these all break my heart. He stopped loving her today. Where have you been? It makes me think of my late husband. Whiskey Lullaby because I'm a non-practicing drinker. Blue Eyes Crying in the Rain. Again, it makes me think of Richard. Story 3. Many sad love and loss songs resonate with me. But here are a few that stand out. That's My Job by Conway Twitty. She Thinks His Name Was John by Reba McEntire. Grand Tour by George Jones. Story 4. I'm Not Going to Miss You, Glenn Campbell. It was true as it was being recorded, which makes it even sadder. Story 5. A lot of people tend to say He Stopped Loving Her Today by George Jones, but I recommend his song, The Grand Tour. The narrator guides you through a tour of his home, where it is initially presumed that his wife recently left him, until it is revealed at the end that she passed away during childbirth, along with the child. As you leave, you'll see the nursery. Oh, she left me without mercy, taking nothing but our baby and my heart. It is a complete gut punch of a song. Story 6. One country song that I can't listen to is called How Can I Help You Say Goodbye by Patty Loveless. The song features 3 verses depicting different times in the singer's life. Throughout it all, her mom was there to support her through tough times, from a best friend moving away in childhood to a divorce in adulthood, and then the death of her mother. My mom had many surgeries from the time I was young until I turned 28, and she passed away in 2015. I can't listen to it because it reminds me of her. Story 7. The other day, I saw a post of Dolly Parton in her 20s, and someone commented on how attractive Jolene was to take this woman's man. Story 8. I know it's technically a cover and not an original country song, but Gary Allan's rendition of Best I Ever Had is part of him working through the grief of his wife's suicide. Story 9. Chris Stapleton's song Maggie's Song is about his dog. I don't even like dogs that much, but I sure miss that one after listening to that song. Taylor Swift, who used to be a country singer, has a song called Soon You'll Get Better. It's about her mom's battle with cancer, and I had to sit in the car for a little while after hearing it on the radio because I couldn't go into the store yet. It was so sad. Story 10. The Last Thing I Needed First Thing This Morning by Willie Nelson. He Stopped Loving Her Today by George Jones. 7 Spanish Angels by Ray Charles and Willie Nelson. Bonus. If Tomorrow Never Comes by Garth Brooks because I was going through a difficult time. Story 11. Don't Blink by Kenny Chesney was a song my parents listened to frequently when I was a child. When I hear it now, I cry because it truly goes by so fast. Story 12. Waiting Around to Die Town's Van Zant. Story 13. Goodbye Carolina by the Marcus King Band. I Will Always Love You by Dolly Parton. Story 14. Undisputed number 1. Don't Take the Girl, Tim McGraw. Honorable mentions. What Mattered Most, Ty Herndon. Tell Lori I Love Her, Keith Whitley. Don't Let the Old Man In, Toby Keith. That's Why I'm Here, Kenny Chesney. Remember When, Alan Jackson. Story 15. Concrete Angel. I don't listen to country music, but my grandma does, and she played the music video which brought tears to my eyes. Story 16. Streets of Heaven by Sherry Austin is about a mother by her 7-year-old daughter's hospital bed. Don't Take the Girl by Tim McGraw tells the story of a boy who is initially not impressed by a girl, but they grow up and fall in love. Ultimately, at the end of the song, she is dying after giving birth to their baby. Crying for Me, Wayman's Song, by Toby Keith is particularly sad as it is a tribute to a real person. The singer wrote it in grief for his friend who passed away, and it even includes his real voicemail at the start of the song. Story 17. For me, it's The House That Built Me. It reminds me of my great-grandparents in Oklahoma, where I spent my summers as a child working with my grandfather on his farm. Story 18, Almost Home by Craig Morgan. Paint Me a Birmingham by Tracy Lawrence. Used to You by Luke Combs. If Tomorrow Never Comes by Garth Brooks. Story 19, Tim McGraw if you're reading this. Sadly, the lyrics to the song are remarkably similar to what happened to a friend of mine who was killed in action in Iraq in the early 2000s. Story 20. It's not the most devastating song, but the one that always makes me cry, especially as I get older and now have a child of my own, is It Won't Be Like This for Long by Darius Rucker. Story 21. She Thinks His Name Was John is a really sad song. It's about a woman who contracted AIDS from a one-night fling with a man she didn't know. It was written at a time when there were not many effective treatments for HIV infections, and they typically progressed to full-blown AIDS. Story 22. Ode to Billy Joe. Not because he commits suicide, but because her family is casually cruel in speaking of his death, and they do not understand how much pain she is in. Story 23. Most of the favorites are listed here. Here are a couple you might not have heard of. Writing on the Wall by George Jones. Where Have You Been? By Kathy Mattea. What If She's an Angel? By Tommy Shane Steiner. Story 24. Where Have You Been? By Kathy Mattea. The rest of you can go back and delete your answers now. Honorable mention goes to Red Dirt Girl by Emmylou Harris. Story 25. Everything That Glitters Is Not Gold. Den Sales. Almost Home. Craig Morgan. Story 26. Pretty Much Anything by Wheeler Walker Jr. He really knows how to pull on the heartstrings. Story 27. For me, it's Concrete Angel by Martina McBride and The Little Girl by John Michael Montgomery. I cry every time I hear either of them. Story 28. He Stopped Loving Her Today by George Jones hits hard. It's the gold standard of heartbreak country. You hear those first few notes, and you already know you're about to feel emotions. Story 29. Ruby, Don't Take Your Love to Town. A veteran returns home, dying and unable to satisfy his wife anymore. He sits there and watches her get dressed up to leave and be satisfied by another man. Story 30. It's not the saddest song, but There Is No Arizona by Jamie O'Neill resonates with me in a unique way. I think it's the experience of being strung along that strikes a chord with me. Story 31. You Should Be Here by Cole Swindell resonates deeply if you have lost someone. Red Rag Top by Tim McGraw is poignant because it explores young love and the process of moving on from something that seemed everlasting. Story 32. If You Get There Before I Do by Colin Ray. It's also one of the most beautiful songs in any genre, in my opinion. Story 33. Alyssa Lies by Jason Michael Carroll. Story 34. The song The Baby by Blake Shelton always makes me think of my mom. It's been almost 2 years since I lost her, and I cry every time I hear it. Story 35. One sad, biting and haunting song is What It Means by the Drive-By Truckers. 3 tight and intense stanzas about racial violence capture much of what has gone wrong. Story 36. I am not a country music fan, but there is a song that plays on the radio at Christmas time. It is about a child selling his shoes to help pay for his mother's hospitalization or perhaps buying shoes for her to wear at her funeral. Does anyone know the name of this song and the artist? My kids remind me that this song reduced me to tears when I was driving them around. Story 37. Transcendent Ramblin' Railroad Blues by Colter Wall is a powerful song about the inescapable feeling of depression and the urge to escape it. While all his songs capture sadness, the lyrics in this one resonate deeply. If I don't leave here tomorrow, I believe I'll blow out my brains. But either way there will be sorrow, you won't be seeing me again. Story 38. Feed Jake Pirates of the Mississippi. The Little Girl John Michael Montgomery. Drink a Beer Luke Bryan. I Drive Your Truck Lee Bryce. Story 39. That's My Job by Conway Twitty. Probably because I would have loved a dad who cared for me like that. Holes in the Floor of Heaven by Steve Wariner and Love Me, If You Get There Before I Do by Colin Ray always get to me as well, but both are now bittersweet. It's sad to lose someone you loved so much, but you also knew that love. You experienced it and lived it. I cannot listen to Johnny Cash's rendition of Hurt without tearing up. But that's due to his voice and raw emotion as much as the song itself. I'm not downplaying the song at all. It's brilliant. Story 40. He Stopped Loving Her Today is the winner. But if you have ever heard That's My Job by Conway Twitty, it will make you shed a tear for your dad. Story 41. If I Die Young by the band Perry. I listened to this every day leading up to my suicide attempt 15 years ago. Story 42. Whiskey Myers' Broken Window Serenade reminds me of a good friend who passed away due to substance abuse. In the song, a gentleman falls in love with a woman who succumbs to her addiction over the years. Highway 20 Ride by the Zac Brown Band brings tears to my eyes whenever I listen to it. It reminds me of my father's struggle to get me from my mother during their divorce. Story 43. Both Years and Seminole Wind by John Anderson are songs of loss of culture, memories, time, and ideals. They also contain elements of positivity and hope, which lend them a wistful tone. Story 44. Letting Go by Susie Bogus. It's all about a daughter going off to college and the mother, well, letting go. I'm sure there are much sadder country songs out there, but this came out the summer before I started college. My mom and I were a mess every time the video came on. I cried just now watching it again, and it's been a long time since I went to college. Story 45. Why by Rascal Flatts. Alyssa Lies by Jason Michael Carroll. Those are my two big I Need a Good Cry songs. Story 46. The Dance by Garth Brooks. There have been 2 times when I've teared up to music. This song and seeing Mudvayne live. Story 47. I was familiar with the song and love Randy Travis. I was headed back to Tennessee after my dad passed away from Alzheimer's. Growing up, Dad was not great at showing emotion. As I got older and learned about his upbringing, it made sense. I could count on 3 fingers the number of times he told me he loved me. My brother had cleaned out their house as best he could. Mom was already in an assisted living facility. He found this box way back in the closet. The night before I left, he brought it out and we found all these notes he had written to our mom. He was in the National Guard when they got married and he wrote to her every night during his 2-week training and once a month. He had cute little nicknames for her, sending her money so she could visit her sister. I had stopped for the night and as I was pulling into the hotel, that song came on. I lost it sitting in my truck. Snot bubbles, the whole 9 yards. Story 48. 7 Spanish Angels. She said, "Father, please forgive me. I can't make it without my man." And she knew the gun was empty, and she knew she couldn't win. But her final prayer was answered when the rifles fired again. Story 49. This is more recent and personal, but Burning House by Cam never fails to make me feel deeply sad. I first heard it while painting the basement of the home that my wife and I bought together. We were painting it to put up for sale because we were getting divorced. She was abusive and I hadn't recognized that yet. I can feel that vibe from the song. It was bad, but she hadn't realized how bad it was yet. Story 50. That's My Job by Conway Twitty. Brutal. Just thinking about it makes my lip quiver. Story 51. Now, I don't know many country songs, so not a lot of people may agree with me. Believe by Brooks and Dunn, especially when you watch the music video, is impactful. I was going to mention Alyssa Lies, but someone already did. Story 52. Does the Johnny Cash version of Hurt count? Jolene may not be on the same level as some others, but it is still heartbreaking. Story 53. Don't Let the Old Man In. It's especially sad when Toby Keith sang it at the 2023 People's Choice Country Music Awards right before he passed away from cancer. Story 54. Whiskey Lullaby by Brad Paisley and Alison Krauss. If that one doesn't ruin your day, nothing will. Story 55. Who You'd Be Today by Kenny Chesney. Remember When by Alan Jackson. Don't Let the Old Man In by Toby Keith. Story 56. One of These Days by Tim McGraw has an emotional impact on me each time I hear it. Watching Airplanes by Gary Allan is one of my all-time favorites, but the background story adds to its sadness. It was written in honor of his wife, who tragically took her own life and was also a flight attendant. Story 57, Me and Little Andy, by Dolly Parton. Or, I Don't Remember Loving You, by John Conley. I go back and forth. Story 58, Just One? Impossible. Here are 5 songs that make me cry no matter how many times I hear them. If Heaven Wasn't So Far Away by Jason Moore, 3 Wooden Crosses by Randy Travis, Dirt Cheap by Cody Johnson, Letters from Home by John Michael Montgomery, and Dad's Old Number by Cole Swindell. Story 59, How Can I Help You Say Goodbye by Patty Loveless. It was very sad before I became a parent. It is almost unbearable now that I have a child. Story 60, He Stopped Loving Her Today by George Jones. That title is on his headstone monument. Tammy Wynette is buried in the same cemetery, not too far away. Story 61, Reddit's Saddest Country Songs playlist. Most mentioned songs. 1. He Stopped Loving Her Today, George Jones. One of the most critically acclaimed country songs ever written. This 1980 classic tells the story of a man who only stops loving a woman when he dies. Whiskey Lullaby, Brad Paisley featuring Alison Krauss. A haunting duet about a couple torn apart, with both ultimately drinking themselves to death from heartbreak. Concrete Angel, Martina McBride. A devastating song that confronts the serious subject of child abuse. Traveling Soldier, The Chicks. A heartbreaking story about a young soldier who falls in love before going to Vietnam, only to perish in the war. Don't Take the Girl, Tim McGraw. A narrative about a boy who grows up to fall in love, only to face losing his wife during childbirth. Go Rest High on That Mountain, Vince Gill. A tribute Gill wrote after the death of country singer Keith Whitley, later completed after his own brother's passing. How Can I Help You Say Goodbye, Patty Loveless. Chronicles 3 defining losses in a woman's life, with her mother helping her through each one. There Goes My Life, Kenny Chesney. A young man believes his life is over when his girlfriend gets pregnant, but his daughter becomes his whole world. More heartbreaking country songs. 9. I'm So Lonesome I Could Cry, Hank Williams. A classic song of devastating loneliness that Elvis Presley once called, probably the saddest song I've ever heard. 10. The House That Built Me, Miranda Lambert. A woman returns to her childhood home, seeking closure and healing from the memories it holds. 11. Holes in the Floor of Heaven, Steve Wariner. A touching song about loved ones watching from heaven. 12. If You're Reading This, Tim McGraw. A soldier's final letter home to his family if he doesn't make it back from war. 13. Hurt, Johnny Cash. Cash's cover of a song originally by 9 Inch Nails, recorded near the end of his life, is hauntingly poignant. 14. Alyssa Lies, Jason Michael Carroll. The heartbreaking story of a child abuse victim told from the perspective of her classmate's father. 15. I Drive Your Truck, Lee Bryce. A man copes with his grief by driving his deceased brother's truck. 16. Just a Dream, Carrie Underwood. A young woman's wedding day turns into a funeral as she realizes her fiancé has died in combat. 17. Elephant, Jason Isbell. A raw, unflinching account of watching a friend die of cancer. 18. Where've You Been, Kathy Mattea. The touching story of an elderly couple separated by illness who reunite in a nursing home. 19. Feed Jake, Pirates of the Mississippi. A song with the simple request to care for the narrator's dog after he's gone. 20. Coat of Many Colors, Dolly Parton. A bittersweet autobiographical song about a poor girl whose mother makes her a coat from rags. Story 62. One that really gets me is Patty Griffin's Don't Let Me Die in Florida. It's told from the perspective of her father, a World War II veteran, looking back on his life and the nearness of death. The song is hard-nosed instead of sentimental, so it hits different emotional notes than other country songs, and they really resonate with me. There is something hypnotic about that propulsive baritone guitar that feels like the diesel-powered Greatest Generation fighting against the hard, cold drum kit while Griffin sings from his point of view. You can hear the bitter disappointment, regret, and fear underneath it all. Story 63. People are going to say he stopped loving her today because it's a meme, but I've aged 20 years in 5. If drinking doesn't kill me, her memory will. These are much sadder songs on the same album. Story 64. I don't disagree with everyone who voted for He Stopped Loving Her Today, but The Grand Tour is another strong contender from George Jones. Story 65. Dirt Cheap by Cody Johnson resonates with me. I am living on inherited land that my father-in-law wanted our children to grow up on. It is prime land in the Outer Banks. We have a canal leading to the Sound in our backyard with 168 feet of bulkhead. He purchased this house and everything in it, except for the one shed I built, for $124,000 around 12 years ago. The empty lot next door, which has a bulkhead and one shed but no house, sold for $400,000 last year. We want this land to become the family summer home, never to be sold, as my father-in-law wished. Story 66. Hurt by Johnny Cash. I know there is a 9 Inch Nails version, but it is not even close to the level of anguish Cash brings to this song. It affects me deeply every time I hear it. Story 67. A girl died from cancer when I was in high school in a small town. They played this song in remembrance of her. My sister passed away in her 20s, and she loved Diamond Rio's Beautiful Mess. So this song, One More Day, deeply affects me. Story 68. It's only the edge of the country, but I hung my head in sadness. It's about a guy who was practicing his aim and accidentally shot his brother. Thanks a bunch for sticking around till the end of the video. Remember to subscribe, and until next time, stay awesome and goodbye.